Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. I think today's going to be one of those ones that is probably a lot more interesting than some of the others that we've done. Because finance can be kind of a dry place in general. But I was really thrilled that Kimball agreed to do this, because one of the things that we do a lot of work with is just estate administration and how to help families navigate, the financial side of it. And the more you do of that, the more you realize that the financial side of it is not the hard part. It's the physical items. It's dealing with emotions. It's dealing with, how do we split up, a lifetime of, accumulation and whatnot. And so what we've tried to do a lot over the last couple of years is really focus on kind of two areas. And one is helping families prepare for it in advance, and kind of having some of those conversations, either with, descendants that are expecting this down the road, or just in planning as, a parent or treasurer, you might be leaving things to, so that it's a little bit easier on our loved ones when we go. And then the opposite side of that is dealing with it in the moment, because estates are so horrible in the fact that you have to deal with all the emotion when you're also being asked 10,000 questions that you feel like are going to make, the biggest differences in the world, and am I going to make a mistake? And so what we found is having trusted partners in that conversation makes a huge difference. And Kimball has done a tremendous job for a number of our clients, both on the pre-consultation of how do we set this up, and then also in the actual administration. He handled my dad's estate sale, and just one of the things that he'll have his own stories, but anecdotally for me, it became my brother and my dad's estate sale. So we were able to actively put in things from just our own personal things into that estate sale process, which made a massive difference. And a lot of times those are things that people don't think about what you can do. So I will turn the mic over to Kimball, and as people come in, just, we'll keep it going, but feel free to ask questions. Kimball's got way better stories than I do, but we're so appreciative that he was able to spend some time with us. And if anybody has questions afterwards, or has, personal things that it strikes a chord with that you want to talk about, don't go. That, the man of the hour.
Man of the hour. I do much better if I keep my hat on. Would that bother y'all? You'll hear better stories if I have my hat on.
We want to hear your stories.
I can tell you a lot better stories. As y'all know, I'm Kimball Sterling, and I'm from Johnson City since 1972. Before that, I was from Union City, Tennessee, the northwest corner of the state. And I guess at 16, my father was in the retail furniture business. And I'd help out after school in the summertime, and Dad would sell him some new furniture, and people would want us to haul off the old furniture. I hauled it off all right. I hauled it off to a junk shop, or a rummage shop, they called them back then. I'd sell it. I was making money with this junk that nobody wanted. So I discovered I needed to go in that business as we got older. After my dad sent me to 4 or 5 colleges, I ended up graduating over to ETSU in 71 or 72. I majored in speech and theater. I was an actor, a dinner theater actor, and a summer stock actor. I did some films and movies, worked for the National Endowment of the Arts. But while I was doing all that, I was still doing antiques, because you didn't work a lot in the theater. I might work 3 nights a week. 3 hours, 4 hours a night. So I built up my knowledge. Knowledge is a key to my business, knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, you're not going to have any luck. Now, being from Johnson City and being in the auction business for about 44 years, does that tells you how old I am? How old do you think I am? Guess, just guess, go ahead.
44.
44. How old do you think I am?
65.
Okay, how old do you think I am?
66.
Be 74 in about 2 months. But I go at it every day, just like I started 40 years ago. Can't go as hard, but I have 2 daughters in business with me who are both auctioneers, and they've been learning the business for about 10 or 15 years. And they're pretty sharp. I've done a lot of important sales. I sold the Alex Haley estate, sold his farm, sold the Roots manuscripts, sold the Malcolm X postcard. I got the most out of a postcard that's ever been sold. We got $8,000 out of a postcard, and that was a long time ago. But I've done a lot of pretty cool sales. I got little notes on my phone. I can't see that far, I don't guess. I have some cool clients. I have the old farmer in overalls that comes to my sales that never had a check. All he has is a roll of $100 bills in his pocket with rubber bands around it. And you just can't you've heard this, and I hate to say it again, but you can't judge a book by its cover. You really can't. And then I have the fancy people like Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi buys from me. Ted Koppel buys from me. Tina Turner used to buy from me. But they find you. If they're collectors, they find you. They're always looking for something crazy. You never know what somebody's looking for. You probably got some of this crazy stuff at home. You just don't know it. You know, if you have a lot of antiques today, like what we call it, brown is down. Anything that's brown in antique furniture is not worth a darn. And in 10 years, it won't be worth anything. The whole new generation of the kids today don't care anything about it. I used to go into a house with a administrator or executor like AFI, and the executor would tell me, now the daughter wants that, it's going to Roanoke, the son wants that, it's going to Waukegan, Illinois, the niece gets that, she wants that, and all the good stuff would be gone. But I'd still sell the rest of it. But now you go in the house and none of the kids, 25 to 40, don't want anything. They're minimalists. There's 5 things about this new generation. They want a $2,500 cell phone. They want a $75,000 to $100,000 car. They want a 1,200 square foot apartment or house. They want IKEA furniture that they can take apart and put back together and get new furniture every 3 years. And some of that furniture is pretty nice. And the last thing is amazing to me. I used to do what they did, what they paid $3,500 for today. I could do it for free. I still could. They buy an experience. They leave on Friday, come back on Sunday. They jump out of trees or jump out of airplanes, land in lakes, and go scuba diving with sharks. And that's all a lot of fun. But you don't have to spend $3,500 for that. But they don't care. That's what they want to do. And that's the new generation. It's not changing. Like I said, the brown is down antique section is going to be worth nothing in 10 years. Like a $4,500 corner cupboard, which is pretty common to our area here. If you paid $4,500 for it before 2008, 2008 really hit the market of antiques bad with the recession and everything, and then the kids were coming up, and so that corner cupboard you paid $4,800 for in 2008, it's worth $600 today. Now, if you had a $40,000 corner cupboard in 2008, it's worth $50,000. The market's gone all upper echelon. It's going all up to the high dollar stuff, completely, all of it. And we sell a lot of it, and every now and then we get that high dollar piece, but we get a lot of it. My main work today, we do estates. We've done a lot for AFI, and I can tell you AFI is not because they're sitting there and I'm sitting here. I work with a lot of banks and a lot of different people, and AFI watches everything closer than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, they're good. I was about to have a battle with Peter a few years back over a LaSalle car. He said, I want this much out of it. I said, Peter won't bring it. I don't think it'll bring it. Oh, yes, it will. Yes, it will. It brought it. And he didn't know anything about that LaSalle car, but a little research. He taught me a lesson. So, yeah. I mean, I just wanted to get him down a couple $1,000s, and I couldn't get him down a couple of thousand, but I found a buyer up in upstate New York for it at an auction, and he'd been on the telephone that day and came down and got it. He was just tickled to death. He'd seen the car 30 years ago at a car show here in Kingsport, believe it or not. And he had to have this car. He's been wanting it 30 years. But it's how the advertising pays off in my business. But what I really like to do today are canes. I'm the world's largest, in Johnson City, Tennessee, this may sound stupid to you, but I'm the world's largest antique cane auctioneer. We'll do $1.5 million, $2 million a year in just walking sticks, plain old walking sticks. And we have, you know, like Goldberg, she loves walking sticks. She loves them. She pays some crazy prices. And then there's a guy named Darren Aronofsky. He did Black Swan, he did Requiem, he did that movie The Whale. He's a big director in New York. He buys canes, and he'd never been to Johnson City, never met him, but we've been doing business 5 years. He trusts what we sell him. We'll guarantee it to be what it is. At every sale, 4, 5, 6 times a year, he'll spend $60,000 sight unseen. That's a lot of trust. God trusts us. So we have those kind of people working with us. And, you know, Kimball and Sterling Inc., I have been voted, not to toot my horn too much, I hope, but I'm just trying to tell you about the auction business, because a lot of you see auction signs, but you don't know a lot about it. We've been voted best of show in the National Auctioneers Association twice. We're the only company that's ever done that. I don't even enter it anymore because I feel guilty. I mean, I really do. I don't even enter it anymore. I guess one of the prize things that didn't pay anything but $61 for a drive to Nashville plus my gas is I just came off as chairman. Governor Lee appointed me in the Department of Commerce, on the Auctioneering Commission. I was the chairman of it, and I was on it for 6 years. So Tennessee and most states have an auction commission. If you have a problem with an auctioneer has to buy a license in Tennessee just like a doctor, a lawyer, a professional license. You have to buy it, and you're governed. So this commission, if you have complaints about somebody, if you don't like something I did, you don't tell me about it. You could address me first, I might be able to explain it. But you can file a complaint with the Tennessee Auctioneers Commission, it'll come before the board, and it'll be heard. And it's great. Now, like I went to California about 7, 8 years ago and did a big prop house out there called Art Deco LA. I mean, it was a monster, 18,000 square foot building. I was in LA 54 days with my crew. And they don't have any auction commission out there. You know, all you gotta do is buy a $20,000 bond. And you don't have any recourse. But Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, it seems to be a southern thing, because maybe the southern auctioneers years ago, back in the race car days, were getting a little wild with people's money, buying moonshine and running those cars around the track. I don't know. But it's good. You know, New York doesn't even have an auctioneering commission. All you have to do in New York is you walk into the office at City Hall and buy a license saying you're an auctioneer. But don't you dare try to plug up a plug without getting a union guy. I went up to New York City, a friend of mine, orchestra leader's name was Stuart White. Stuart's a great guy. He jumped off a 58-story building about 6, 7, 8 years ago. After 9/11, he just killed his business. But Stuart got me in at the Plaza. Here's a little guy from Tennessee. I'm not such a little guy, I guess. Got me into Plaza Hotel to see they were going to liquidate, turn a bunch of them into condos and things, and keep some rooms. I got to go through every room in that place. In the basement, nooks and crannies, it was exciting. But when I found out what it took to operate in New York City, you can't carry a table in. You know, you can't plug a plug in. I mean, you got to have these union guys do it. And I'm not against unions, but I can't deal with that. You know, you might have to wait 2 days to get something plugged in. So I backed out of that deal. And I'd probably back out of it again, I think, if it had to happen. An auctioneer works on commission. According to what you have, what we're going to charge you, and how much advertising it's going to need, where we need to advertise. There's little local auctions we just put in the local paper. There's regional auctions that you put in region from Asheville and Knoxville, and then there's national advertising. And you decide what you need for that auction before you price it. But the average commission for an auction of personal property, there's a lot of work involved in it. Let me tell you, the day of the auction, it's over. But the morning of the auction's over with. All your work's done. All you gotta do is get up there and be an actor. And I was trained as an actor, so I can do that. It's all over with. But probably the average is about 30%. You can get a Yahoo, what we call a Yahoo, for about 10%, 15%, but it's like getting a plumber. If you get a Jake leg plumber, he's gonna come in and fix your leak. It's gonna work okay, but next week it may mess up. That's what happens with auctioneers. If you get a wrong auctioneer, it can be disaster. And not all auctioneers are smart. I'm smart enough to know if I can't get the money out of it, I'm going to network with another auctioneer, San Francisco, New Orleans. I do a lot in New Orleans and different places. If I've got something that needs to be sold, if I walk into your house and pick out a piece and I say, listen, that's great, the rest of your stuff's junk. That piece needs to go to New York or New Orleans or San Francisco or something. And I'll tell you an interesting story about that. A few years back, I was hired by a Presbyterian minister, heir, in Knoxville, and go down and look at the items in the house. I forget how he got the name. He could have got it from Jake Butcher, I don't know. But anyway, I didn't know Jake. But this guy, this preacher died, and his wife had it. And so I go into the bedroom, and it looks like just normal stuff, and I walk into the bathroom, and here's this painting, this beautiful piece of art. I love art. Beautiful piece of art of this naked lady in a preacher's house with the guy painting with his palette in his hand and his brush. And the painting was done by a guy named Jean-Leon Gérôme, a French artist. He was an Orientalist painter. And I said, man, that's worth a fortune. She said, it is? I said, yes, ma'am. Now, she said, what are you going to do with it? I said, I think I'm going to sell it. This is before the internet now. The internet was popping a little bit. But I said, I think I can sell that in Johnson City. So I took out about a $5,000 ad in an art magazine. And before I did that, I contacted New York, and New York, Sotheby's and Christie's both say about 150,000, 175. But I got to thinking, this painting would be much rarer if it came out of Johnson City. You know, wow, they found this thing in Johnson City. Well, of course, I did a press release. It got USA, that I found this painting, and it ended up bringing $395,000 on the telephones to Peter Bogdanovich's body. Well, he wanted to pay me with a credit card. That's a pretty big limit for a credit card back then, anytime it is. But a credit card, we lose 3%. If I take your credit card as a buyer, I lose 3%. I have to give the credit card company 3% of it. And then they have 6 months to rebuke that charge. And so I called Mr. Bogdanovich's assistant. I said, listen, I can't afford to take that hit on that painting. That it's about $14,000 just to take his credit card. I said, can you help me on this? He said, the assistant said, what if I had him write a letter saying that he would accept the painting no matter what, because I'd sent him many photos of it, and that if they would run it through at 1%, they would do it. So we got that done. So there's a lot of crazy deals I do. An auctioneer is a lot like an undertaker. This is an interesting story. I invented this story. An undertaker, when somebody dies, they'll have a consultation with the family. They'll come in and talk to you. You'll go into the funeral home and talk to them. And then they'll have a viewing for the funeral. And then they'll lay the person to rest. That's exactly what I do. When I go into an estate or something, I go in and have a consultation. Then we do a deal, and then I have a viewing of all their stuff, online, in person, and then I lay it all to rest in one day. It's all gone. It's all over with. You don't have to fuss about it. The heirs don't have to fight about it. The children don't have to fight about it. A lot of people don't have to. Another real interesting story. This is one of my most interesting stories, and I don't tell it where it happened, but I tell you it happened within 15 miles of this building. Somebody calls me and wants me to have an auction for them. So I go, it's a commercial building, so I go to the building and I look around and some strange stuff in this building. And I go up in the attic and there's a crate. It wasn't a plywood crate, it was, built back in the 30s probably, 20s or 30s. And it was about 4 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot. All screwed together, hammered together. I said, what's in that? He says, I don't know. He says, it's been here ever since we've been here. I said, let's see what's in there. So I get one of my crew guys, get a crowbar and a hammer, and we open that up, and we find 95 Ku Klux Klan robes in that barrel. And every one of them had a name in the back of it, written in, and the most important families of this city. And I thought, what in the heck am I going to do with these? But then I figured it out. I've been selling, I don't know if you know who he was or not, but Julian Bond, he was the mayor of Atlanta and he was also the UN representative. Julian was buying some stuff from me in Atlanta. I'd go down to Atlanta once a month, sell a little bit of stuff. And I called Julian up. I said, you're not going to believe what I got. Because he collected black memorabilia. I said, I don't want you to get mad at me or anything, but I was working in a building. I'm going to give you a little hint about the building. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but it's a funeral home. And I said, I found 95 robes. There's even a boss, a wizard robe in there with all these names in there. He says, I want them, So I said, okay. So I took them all but one. I kept one. I still have one. But I can't put it out. I just know that it reminds me of my deal that day. And so I took them to Atlanta to Mr. Bond. Mr. Bond paid me about $15,000 for the robes. I made 30% of them and paid my client. And he started giving them to different black people, museums and different stuff. And he had a blast doing that. That's the same thing with World War II memorabilia with Nazi items. That's a no-no today. I mean, I won't put them on my website, but I have people, and most of them are Jewish people, that like to buy those and donate that kind of stuff to Holocaust museums and things. And some of the stuff you just can't put out in the public anymore, but it's still traded. And I wouldn't dare put anything on my website. I mean, I just wouldn't dare. But these people, they have a method to their madness on what they want to do with it. That's the wildest thing I ever found. Another thing I see in the States a lot, and Peter does this here, and I like it. When the people, if you have children or aunt or nieces or nephews that want to get something, you're going to leave them something. A lot of people they'll have a lawyer at a firm that doesn't know a lot about estates, and I can tell you these guys know a lot about estates here. From their knowledge and my knowledge, we do really good. People sometimes don't know the value of something. And say there's 3 heirs, and they go into the house, and this heir says, I want this, I want this, I want this, and the other heir says, I want that painting on the wall, I want that beautiful piece of furniture over there, and I want that beautiful rug down there, carpet, Persian carpet. So here's the first person who's taken a TV, a washer and dryer, and a refrigerator. She's got about $300 worth of stuff. And this other lady over here has got about $12,000 worth of stuff. And you can't leave in your will something like, let everybody just get what they want, and you got to treat everybody equally, because it'll come back to you. It'll come back to them. When they find out that sister got $40,000 worth of stuff and brother got $4,000 worth of stuff, they'll hate each other the rest of their lives. And you wouldn't believe the hatred you see in the States. It's always good to get, say, AFI. Get you an executor that knows what they're doing. Somebody that knows what they're doing. And if you're not happy with that, you get a co-executor. And you always get an auctioneer for that because he's working on commission. He'll make sure everything goes right. But Peter has, I'll advise him on anything he needs to know. Some of these guys call me. Somebody called me from a firm the other day. I wouldn't even talk to them. They just want to, you got to pay for what you get in life. You got to pay for what you get. And that's what I am. Now, I expect to be here until I'm about 106. But my daughters are very capable of doing what they're doing. And I brought a cane with me today. This cane is called a piquet cane. That means nothing to you, I know that. But this is something we can't sell anymore unless we have papers on it. It's ivory, elephant ivory. You can sell walrus ivory, but we can sell elephant ivory if we have a CITES permit. That's a permit that says it came to the country at a certain date. I'm all against killing elephants, man. I'd like to just kill everybody that killed an elephant. But this is a piquet cane. The Huguenots invented this cane, and this type of cane. And it's elephant ivory, and it has all these little silver dots in it. This is all coin silver. And all the shafts for these type of canes came from a little cane off the west coast of Africa. And they used mud. They're called malacca. It's a malacca wood. And why would you think, see this piece of metal here? It's called a ferrule. Why would you think, this cane's 375 years old, it's that old. Why would you think that it would have a big old long piece of metal on the end instead of just a little tip? Any idea?
Mud?
You got it. See, the streets were mud then, and when you stick it down, you go down in the mud. That's exactly it. But the later canes get down to 1 inch and 3 inches. Now this particular cane, on top of it, it says, my name's Kimball McGee Sterling. I got 3 last names. My mother did that to me. And so on top of this cane, you'll see KMS 51. But 51 is the year I was born, and so it's got my initials on it, but my initials aren't 375 years old. I found an artisan that could do that for me. So I had this 375-year-old cane invented and made so my children could fight over it one day. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'll open you up for some questions if you have some questions. You'll think of something in a minute. Ask me about anything. Yes, ma'am.
What do you do with the items that don't go for auction?
Well, so, trash is trash, but things that can be donated, we'll call a local place and donate them all. And you can usually get a tax slip for that.
Do you ever keep any of it for yourself? Can you do that?
No, I can buy something in the sale, but let me tell you, I just moved from a 5,800 square foot house, mid-century modern house, built by Abernathy in Johnson City. I lived there in the gum edition for about 15 years, to a 2,200 square foot house in Moon Lake. And I don't want anything. I mean, it's taken me this long to get rid of stuff, and I still got 300 boxes to go through. I mean, I just don't want, there's some stuff I still want. Still like my wife, you know. Yeah.
When you go into a home to assess the state sale, is there ever a time when you say, or I guess my question is there a certain price point that you're going to start at? I mean, you walk in and you go, this is worth my time, or we've got a couple of things here. How does that work?
Let me tell you something I learned years ago. We have different categories of auctions. You could have a junk auction, you could have a gun auction, we could have a coin auction, diamond auction, a state auction, automobile auction. I've had airplane auctions. And I learned years ago that when I go into somebody's house and they call me and told me how great their stuff is, and I walk in and it's not that great, but I realized at that point in my life, I was about 30, I guess, 32, that's all this man had. He needs help with it. I mean, that's all he's got in life, is that little pile of stuff. Might be $2,000 worth of stuff. Most people will walk away from it, but I don't walk away from it. Something inside of me that says, this man, I've taught my daughters that too, because that little auction you could have could lead to somebody sitting out there watching you and hire you for a big job. But I come over to Peter and had $22 and we're an open account. When I met him, he put me right on there, and now he's got, $42. But coins are good today. Things have changed. That's like Nike tennis shoes. It's crazy what early Nike tennis shoes bring. There's some of them bring $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. The new ones bring a lot. The #1 Levi jacket. It brings, if it's got 14 holes in it, it'll still bring probably 20, 25,000. It's crazy stuff, but usually clothes aren't any good. Now uniforms are, if you got uniforms in your closet. And if you decide you want to get rid of stuff before you pass this world, and you think somebody ought to have it, it may be historically good for something, donate it, get an appraisal on it, donate it, get your tax advisor, Robert, wherever he is today, get him. Get you an appraiser, get it appraised and donate it. Library can always use books. You might have 5,000 books and 2 of them be worth something. I mean, it takes a long time to go through 5,000 books. Do y'all collect anything? Anybody here collect anything?
Got a ton of baseball cards.
Yeah.
That I'm working through.
Yeah, you've been working.
Dad has a stamp collection, which, yeah. It all depends on which ones you got.
That's right. You can have 40,000 baseball cards and 2 of them worth something. Yeah. I just don't go through baseball cards anymore. I have a guy that does that, and I hope he's honest. I think he hasn't been dealing with him. He's an engineer at the Johnson City Power Board, so he's a pretty straight shooter, I think. But if you got old coins in the lockbox, right now is the time to sell them. Gold's up.
Coins, stamps, what about stamps?
Stamps. Let me tell you about stamps. Stamps is the craziest. It's hard to find a valuable stamp. It is hard. And by the time a guy goes through them, you're going to have more money in them than a guy than what the stamp's probably worth. But there's a chance, and there's always a chance. There's a chance there's a rare dime, a 1916 D Mercury dime, that's worth a pretty good bit of money. And if you had 10,000 dimes that had never been looked through, it'd be worth going through for that one dime. And 1932 quarters the same way. And in silver dollars, Carson City silver dollars are expensive. They were made in the city of Carson City. It's a mint mark on the back that says CC. But it all depends on, just a plain old born out of the pocket silver dollar today is probably worth $27. But if you had an uncirculated silver dollar that was a CC, it could be worth $2,000. And if you think you've got an uncirculated dollar, it's a good date. When I get an estate, if I think it needs to be sent off, we'll send it off and get it graded. There's a company called PCGS that will grade your coin for about $90. And it's worth $90 if it's a good enough coin. But you have to have 2 or 3 people, including myself, look at it and make a decision on whether they grade them in numbers. It's crazy. MS65 is brilliant uncirculated. That's what they'll call it. And MS70 would be a proof coin. MS55 would be a circulating coin. They go by all these numbers by 5. But just one little difference in the number. I've had people send coins off and they didn't like the way they came back. And they would take them out of the plastic seal container and send them back in. They come back lower. So coins are good. I like coins. Guns.
Y'all got some of your experience with musical instruments?
Oh, I love musical instruments. My father had a furniture store, but yet he had a musical store. We sold, Gibson Les Pauls and Hummingbirds and Fender Jaguars back then. And I collect guitars. I love guitars. I like the old Gibsons, the Southern Jumbos. I even like the B12s, the B25s, the little body guitars. I think that's one of the best things a man can own. I really do. I think if I would have kept musical instruments when I was young, working for my father, that I would have billions and billions, I'd be billions of dollars today. Because it's crazy how they go up. You know, one of the best instruments that I like to collect are mandolins. You know, Gibson made great mandolins. And there's one Gibson mandolin, it's called a Lord. And that mandolin, some of them are bringing $800 to $1 million now. 800,000 a million. What kind of instruments do you like?
Well, I've got some guitars and things, nothing I'm sure is any great value.
Well, you can't ever tell what's good. George Gruen is a guy that owns a business in Nashville called GTR, Gruen Guitars. And George and I was trading antiques at the Nashville Flea Market, walking through the market, going one way when I was about 20, 21, 19. He'd be coming the other way with a fiddle in his hand. We talked to each other, and he's built a monstrous business in, you know, vintage instruments. He still takes my calls, though. Every now and then I'll get something he wants. Some of those early Martin parlor guitars, they're real expensive. I had a real good one show up that brought about $22,000 about 12, 13 years ago, but Neil Wood bought it, and he sent a representative to check it out to see what it was, and he took it back. And the Brothers Osborne, does anybody know the Brothers Osborne? They're country music, two guys. One of them came out gay about 4 or 5 years ago, but they're a great group. Every time I see them on stage, they're playing my Gibson Hummingbird. I traded to another guy for an expensive Martin, what's called a Purple Martin, and he sold it to them, and I see it on TV and wish I had it back. But I've had so much cool stuff in my life, it's ridiculous. And I really don't care to have any more of it, but when I see it, I want to buy it. Now, something can be great to me if it's $3. And it can be 10,000, it can be great. But I like things that were a labor of love, that somebody made for somebody else. That you pick it up, I'm getting chill bumps right now talking about it. Somebody made it, you know, and gave it to a child, or gave it to their grandfather, or their grandmother, a cane, or a letterbox, or a quilt. You know, I love quilts. I got a heck of a collection of quilts. I still got a lot of collections, even though I'm in a smaller house. I've got things from the Olmec period, Ushabis from 600 BC. I just got all this crazy stuff. And everything I kept from my old house, kids gonna get to sell one day. And I just hope they're smart enough to sell it.
You mentioned appraisers a little while ago. How do we find an appraiser for something that's, I don't know, some strange piece of artwork from another country?
Okay, let me tell you about artwork.
How do you get,
Okay.
just an artifact from another country?
Well, let's take a painting, for instance.
Okay.
Paintings are usually signed, but you can't always make it out. Sometimes you may have to play with a painting for a year before you figure that name out. And you may have to take pictures of it, blow it up, and take it down. But there are appraisers. One of the cheapest way, it is the cheapest way to get an appraisal on an item, is take a picture of it. This is kind of fun. I learned this years ago. Take a picture of it, with the signature, take a picture of the painting, take a picture of the back of it, and go to Sotheby's. So I used to do it by snail mail, but go to Sotheby's or Christie's or Butterfield's or the girls down in New Orleans, and send them a picture of it. Don't talk to them first. Just send them a picture of it and say, I would like to know when this could be included in one of your next sales. And they'll get back to you. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, they'll say, we can't use that. And you really get a free appraisal. If they can use it, they know what it's worth. It works. It works. Anybody else have any more questions?
What about historical documents?
I love them.
Land grants and...
Yeah, me and Tom Dawson used to trade those when I was a young man. attorney here in Kingsport. Tom's dead now. But, you know, like the Andrew Johnson land grants that he did, his secretary signed most of those. You can't hardly tell the difference. Some of them used an auto pen, what's called an auto pen, where they could trace the president's signature and put it on the documents. You got to look out for that. But I bought a Roosevelt not long ago. Roosevelt signature. Got a pen he used in the White House, but it had enough documentation with it that I didn't have to test it. But I run into a sale over here in Kingsport a few years back. The lady had 7 original photographs of Elvis Presley when he was in Germany, and 2 of them were signed. And I said, "Where'd you get these things?" She said, "Well, my uncle was over there, and he was the man that would escort him from the barracks or whatever to this girl's house that he was visiting." And she gave them to the uncle or whatever. And I said, "I can't authenticate those, but I know how to." And I used the trick I told you all ago. I sent them to a place called R&R Auction in New Hampshire. They put a catalog out every month this thick of autograph stuff. You can buy anybody there. Anybody. And it's authenticated. They're the authenticators. And they said they were all real. And I think I got her 10 or 12 grand out of those photos. But do you have some documents?
My wife's family does some land grants from Western Virginia, which is now West Virginia.
Yeah. Yeah, see, those are worth more in West Virginia than they are anywhere. I've done some sales up in Lewisburg, in that area.
This is where this is.
Yeah. I did a big sale there on Main Street, and they had a great piece of furniture, a Chippendale 3-drawer chest. And it was worth $4,000 or $5,000 easy, this before ground is down. So I did some research and found out that chest was from the Blaine family, which was he was a politician or something. It's been so long, it's hard for me to remember. And his wife's name was Charlotte, and he died first. So I put a label on that chest, call it the Charlotte Blaine Chippendale chest. That made it much more important. Provenance. I put some provenance with it.
Yes.
Provenance is important if you can put it with it and back it up. If you can't back it up, don't put it with it. And it brought like $22,000 that chest here. But the best place, that's like you get John Sevier here, in this part of the country, you get documents with John Sevier's name and his brother's name. What's his brother's name? Vat, V-A-T, Vatimir, but they called him Vat. John Sevier's worth $400 or $500. David Crockett is worth a bloody fortune. You ever found something David Crockett on? It's wild. But most of David Crockett's stuff is fake. There was a guy up in Roanoke, Virginia years ago that sold David Crockett's personal Bible 7 different times. His name was Steve Shimshopper. I'll never forget it. I thought I found the rarest thing, and I went to the State Museum. I sold when I sold the Alex Haley sale, I sold a lot of stuff to the State Museum, so I would just stop in there and I'd go back in there and look around. And the curator, Dan, used to be the curator, he's retired now, he said, "I want to show you something I got." I go back there and he showed me this David Crockett Bible. I said, "I'd be leery of that, Dan." He said, "We just paid $40,000 for it." I said, "Dan, I'd be leery about it." And he never said a word after it, because more than likely it's not any good. I see Indian relics, as the best Indian relic maker in the whole United States lived outside of Bristol, toward Bristol County. He'd make this stuff. He was a Korean veteran with one leg. He'd chisel that stuff out. It was beautiful. I've seen it in museums all over the country. There was a little old lady up in Marion, Virginia named Georgia Blizzard. That's a wild name, Georgia Blizzard. She made these clay pots, which looked like Indian pots, and she'd sell them for $5 and $10 each. Well, these traders would get them, and they go swap them to museums and all get thousands of dollars out of them. And you go in any museum in the country that has Indian relics and see her pots, and you'll think they're Indian. Of course, the novice doesn't know, but there's so much fakery out there, especially today. A lot of fakery.
So what would you suggest on something like Chinese artifacts? I mean, this is stuff that probably would not be let out of China now. This is going back to Mao's reign. But just my in-laws had stuff that just, you look at it, and there's no way they would let that out of China now.
Well, they wouldn't now if it is that old.
Yeah,
You know, they reproduced 400-year-old stuff 200 years ago in China. They're the best reproducers in the world.
true.
I mean, and they put the original stamp on the bottom of it, and a lot of they stamp in. There's a type of metal with enamel called cloisonite. It's beautiful. It's all this little work and enamel work, and they even put the imperial seal on the bottom of the cloisonite made 100 years ago, when it was really made 200 years ago. The Chinese are crazy to get their artifacts back now. They want them back. They want to buy them. They really battle at auctions for them. If you think they're that old, you just need to take some pictures of them. And it takes a real expert. I'm a so-called expert, but I'm not the expert you need if you've got that kind of stuff. I can look at it and say whether I think it needs to go somewhere. But you can text me some pictures or something, and I can tell you if I thought you should, or just enjoy it. That it?
I'll share just one or two things that I think is really important from the financial standpoint, just real quick. One, it's really, you know, when Kimball talks about 30% commission or 10% commission or whatever it is, I think too many people get hung up on the idea that I sold item X for whatever, and that I paid 30% on. There's a lot of work. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes to getting to that point. So it's not a fair, you know, assessment to the auctioneer to say, oh, well, I could have taken, you know, that to eBay and gotten that price or whatever it is. We've had a state that was politely, I would say, a hoarder house. And I watched Kimball's and his crew sit there and go through hundreds of hours of just because you have to set eyes on it to know whether it's not, you know, worth to go to the next step. Well, those items that aren't worth going to the next step don't get a 30% commission on them if they go to Goodwill or if they go to the trash or whatever it is. So as Kimball said, it's important to have somebody who knows what they're doing, but it's not always, and that's kind of one of those places that when we're talking to clients and we'll say, well, expect, you know, commission on it, but we always want to be very cognizant of the fact that it's not just item X. And the other thing that's of value that probably is underappreciated is the fact that, let's say you have a house that's full of things. It's empty when the auction's over, you know, and you didn't have to do any of that work to empty that house out. You didn't do, you know, the countless trips back and forth or the listing of these things yourself. You might be able to get a higher price on one particular item in there, maybe. But having somebody who does what they do and how they do it is so valuable, and that's why we trust Kimball all the time. As he said, I'll call him up and you know, so if you come into my office and said, I had this, my first call is gonna be to Kimball, you know, because I don't know whether or not a Chinese forgery or not. But I've been in houses with Kimball where, you know, he'll walk through and be like, you think that's good, but that's fake, that's fake, that's fake. That's actually your value. And you're sitting there going, that's my value? And it's really important. So having people that you can trust, people who've done such a wide array. I've never had something that I've gone to Kimball and been like, what is this? Where you didn't have some sort of concept of where we needed to start on it.
I've seen a lot of stuff.
You have seen a lot of stuff.
Here, you know, I don't know how common this is, or if it's always been like this, but I know within the last couple of years, my parents moved into an assisted living. And so they had basically an estate sale. I always thought of an estate sale as after somebody passes. You know, you have, you sell what they have, but they hadn't passed. But it was real important to be able to say, the people that did this, that, because, you know, I'm sure they thought a lot of what they had was much more valuable than it turned out. It was really important to have somebody with a really good reputation to be able to, you know, you could tell them this is what Mr. Sterling said it was required.
Do they have kind of what you call a tag sale where they go in and price everything, or is
That's
it
what
auction?
it is, what it is.
Well, let me comment on that. Let me
No.
comment on tag sales a minute for you. Most of the tag sale people just can go buy a business license and they're in business. They have no training, no license, no nothing. And, you know, for something with not much in the house, they're fine to use. They're not bonded, we're licensed and bonded through the governor's office. But some of these tag sale people don't know what they're doing. I have two friends that make over $150,000 a year buying at tag sales and gold. So if you got the right kind of stuff, you need to have a tag sale. But if you got the better stuff, you need to have an auction. Or a lot of people will call me into a house before they have the tag sale, and I'll pick out the best stuff and take it with me. And then the other people can have tag sale. But you never know what's valuable. You just never know. It's crazy. It's nuts what's crazy out here today.
I do think what you're saying is becoming more common, especially as people are living longer and we're having more and more cases of dementia, Alzheimer's, things that are extending people, we're downsizing, and it's becoming more common. And that word estate throws people that, well, I have to wait until they pass away to do that. And it may not be the best solution. So it's definitely becoming more common. I want to thank everybody for coming today. We're going to hang around, you know, if anybody has any other questions. We'll have another one of these. I think we've been doing them every other month. We've been talking about a couple other ideas for those, whether or not we do them as a coffee or an after hours. We may do another lunch. Who knows? We'll figure it out as we go.